Today we're having a look at a built scooter motor, but unfortunately, he dead. So this is an engine for my Honda Lead, which is over there. It's got a CR80 piston and a bunch of porting stuff done to it. It's got a DO manifold, big carb, etc. So my friend gave this to me. He put it together and said that it only ran for a few minutes and then it seized. Apparently it was very fast for those few minutes, which is cool, but we're going to pull it apart and see why it seized. So the first thing you notice on this, it's not currently seized, but it was. So generally that's going to point towards the rings being gapped incorrectly. But the first thing we have to do is, because this is an air-cooled engine, it's got this cover on it, so it sucks air with the fan through here and then blows it through the cover and out the back to cool the head. So we'll pull the cover off, start having a look at the head underneath. The reason it sounds like it's probably the rings is because normally if the piston is too big and seizes, it destroys the bore and the engine just stays seized, it doesn't loosen up again. Because it's loosened up again, makes me think it's the rings. Because what happens is the ring is a circle and it's got a gap in it. And then as the rings expand, the gap gets smaller and smaller, and if the gap isn't big enough, the ring will touch, and then it jams itself in the cylinder bore, but then once it cools down and shrinks, it unseizes again. So hopefully that's the case, because that would be easy to fix. So now that the top's off, we can get to the cylinder head. I wonder how tight this is going to be, considering they're only 10mm head studs, which is like definitely the smallest head studs I've ever worked on. Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. He dead. So I've just swapped to a different lens. As you can see, this engine has been chewing away on something. There's nothing in the combustion chamber, but whatever it was... where's my finger? There's my finger for scale. Maybe like a little screw or something. But you can see it's completely munched the top of the piston, and it's also completely munched the inside of the combustion chamber. So I think what I'll do is I'll keep pulling it apart. We'll see if it's damaged the cylinder walls too much, and then we'll decide what we're going to do. Hopefully find whatever it was, but I'm guessing whatever it was has probably come out the exhaust by now. But it's definitely had some fun bouncing around inside the cylinder and eventually getting shot out the exhaust, because it's pretty chewed up. I like how you can see this is the intake side and this is the exhaust side. You can see it's mainly been on this side because that's the way the air's obviously been flowing the whole time it's running. So I should be able to just lift the cylinder straight off. Yeah, it's come off. It's these same long bolts that hold the head on also hold the barrel on. Boonk. We'll have a close look at this in a minute. Wow, it's full of oil. Like, can you see that on the video? So I've just kind of gotten a light. Pretty sure that's not how two-stroke oil is supposed to work. So for those of you that know how two-stroke works, you understand, but for the people that don't, quickly fill it in. This is an oil pump, and on your four-stroke engine, like a car, the oil sits in the bottom of the engine. You've got the dipstick, check how much is in there, and it gets picked up and pumped around the engine and then goes back in the bottom and pumps in a circle. Whereas on a two-stroke, there's an oil tank up here, somewhere, there, and the oil comes out of the tank, goes into here, and this little pump pumps it into the intake, so it actually sucks the oil in with the air. The oil goes into the cylinder or into the crankcase, in through the cylinder, and then comes out the exhaust. That's why two-strokes make smoke all the time, because they're actually burning the oil as they're running. So this in here, it shouldn't be full of oil. It should be oily, because the oil should be blowing through there as a mist, but it shouldn't be full of oil. So that's an interesting thing to have happened. I'm guessing this just sat around for a while, and this is probably leaking, so the tank of oil is just like drained and filled the thing up, but that's kind of funny. Also, because it's two-stroke, it doesn't have a drain plug, so I'm going to have to like tip it out without making a mess somehow. This doesn't quite work because there's not really enough room to get the pumpy thing far enough down in the engine. I've pumped like half of the oil out. I'll pull the intake manifold off because it's like over to the side. We'll see if we can tip the rest of the oil out and see if there's anything floating around in the bottom of the crankcase. I'm pretty sure whatever it was is escaped out the exhaust, has escaped out the exhaust, but we'll pull it apart and see if we can have any clues. I thought maybe it was a bearing cage or something, but I can't see any bits of bearing cage or anything in there. Like, it doesn't feel like any bearing's gone. So under this section of the manifold here is the reeds. So these are basically little one-way valves that push open when the air goes past. When the air tries to come back this way, they push closed again. That little thing that's been bouncing around in there doesn't appear to have come from here. I would have thought you'd see like a broken piece or something, but there's nothing in here that looks like it would be that little shape, so it's not from there. I guess we'll try and tip the rest of the oil out through the intake port. Let's just try and get the piston off here. It should just be a little clip. So looking at the crank pin here, it does look like it's been running hot possibly, but it also might just be discoloured because it's super old. The thing that we're wondering about in here is this is the bearings that it runs on, little needles. So that thing that's been bouncing around inside the piston could have been one of these, but they're all there. There's another set further down that the conrod pivots on, but given how nice and smooth this is, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be those ones either. Now these flywheels don't just come off once you undo them. There is a special tool to undo them, which I don't have, so I'm going to attempt to slide hammer it off. Ideally a 2-armed gear puller would probably be better. Well, ideally you should get the proper tool, but even better than that would be a 2-arm gear puller, which I also don't have, but I do have a 2-arm attachment for my slide hammer, so we're going to slide hammer it. How did I know that wouldn't just fit straight in there? Come on. Mint. Now that that's off, I can undo all these bolts in the middle here, and the whole thing should separate and we can have a proper look inside, see if there's any thing going on. See if we can find whatever that little piece it was, or where it's come from at least. There we go. Oh man, it smells bad inside. It smells like old oil. So now we got that half off. I'll get the puller out again and we'll take this gear off. Oh, I do not like slide hammering this. I wish I had a 2-arm puller. Okay, so I was able to get it off using the slide hammer like a puller, which is nice. This should just slide out now, which it does, and it looks fine. So I was on the lookout for any of these bearings to be like missing chunks or anything, but this one's a bit notchy, probably because I just beat it, but it's not missing anything. The other one is this one in here, which I won't be taking apart, but there's no way for anything to escape out of there, and as you can see, it's pretty sure it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that bearing. So we'll have a quick look inside the carb, and then if there's nothing in there, then we don't know where the little thing that chewed up the piston came from. I'm pretty sure there's not anything in the carb, but it is a flat slide carb, which I've never pulled apart before, so maybe it's assembled slightly different to how I expect, and there is going to be little pieces in here that could end up going in the engine, but I don't think so. So the only open space in this is here, but that's where the cable goes, so nothing's fallen out of there. And then now that I can see straight through it, there's nothing else inside it to have fallen out either. So that's a bit of a disappointing end. Didn't actually work out what it was. Make sure you subscribe because this engine will be getting rebuilt. I'm going to get another aftermarket piston. I'm going to remachine the head here. We'll work out how to do it ourselves. We're going to see how fast we can get this motor going, which should be cool. So it would have been nice to find out what the little thing it chewed up was, just out of interest. We didn't. But make sure you subscribe. We'll get it fixed up on next time. And thanks for watching. Goodbye.